Want to see two big men with big chests. And big muscles. Bumping meat. That's why I'm here. That's why I watched wrestling as a kid. You want your 5-star matches? You want your 30-minute classics? Not me. Big meaty men slapping meat. I'll wrap it up.
Hello and welcome back to Afterglow episode 53, and we are still in Big Meaty Men Slappin' Meetin' March. That's the best I can do the voice today. But today we're going to be checking out WCW Vs the World, which is actually a port of the Japanese game Virtual Pro Wrestling. And if you're an astute follower of wrestling video games, you'll notice that the intro music that I've modified for this month's intro, some of it comes from this game. But in my opinion, this is like the prototype of a modern wrestling game. It's probably the first one I would really consider the modern style. Even though, yeah, the graphics are blocky, yeah, the crowd is literally 2D sprites that don't move. Yeah, the control system is totally different from a modern game, but as far as that 3D game wrestling look, this is it. And I've got a few memories on this one, because it was my first 32-bit 3D wrestling game, as it was probably for many people. Other than those that had the N64 and was waiting on those awesome WCW games. But we're going to take a quick music cut, and afterwards I will discuss my childhood memories of WCW Vs the World. Alright, welcome back. So this game is, I don't know if I've brought this up yet, but where I lived in town we had a grocery store, and for a while this little grocery store had a small area where they sold PlayStation 1 games. It was just, how do I explain this? If you go to Walmart these days, you know how they have those spinny towers in the clothes sections that has a bunch of cheap t-shirts on it? That's kind of what this thing was. It was a very small, skinny, spinny tower. And I think it probably had maybe a stack of 8 up and down and 2 across. And you could buy some PlayStation 1 games there. And a lot of these were more budget titles. I do remember that my version of WCW vs. World was the greatest hits version. But I went there and I saw, hey, wrestling game, you know. I think it was $20 at the time. I'm like, yeah, I'm totally going to pick it up. As a matter of fact, now that I'm thinking back, the review for Air Combat, I believe that game also came from the same grocery store. So I pick up this game, throw it in my PlayStation, and I don't have many PlayStation 1 games at this point. I've had maybe a few. And the first thing that really jumped out to me was the intro video. There's this awesome full motion video, full color intro video. These became really popular in the PlayStation. Yeah, the Sega CD had some, but the color resolution was low. They were grainy. Like, these looked good on your television. And there's a whole bunch of, quick, 2 or 3 second moments of iconic happenings that WCW had at the time up to that point. Now keep in mind, this is like early Monday Night Wars for the most part. Game came out here in America in March of '97, so we're talking we are in Monday Night War territory, but it's definitely not over yet. Pretty cool, though, to see, you have that piece of WCW that you can view anytime you want. It's a short, 40-second clip video, but it was really cool at the time. So you go into the game menu. It's a pretty basic menu, but it has some cool features like being able to name your own championship belt. And then you go on to character select. So character select in this game's a little interesting. It is called WCW Vs the World for a reason. It has a big old roster, at least 50 wrestlers. Only maybe 10 of them, 12 are actually WCW guys, though. The rest of them are generic, but if you go over and hover over them and look at the face cell pop up on the screen, they look kind of familiar in a way. That's because a lot of these are actually real wrestlers that have been renamed that are from other places. A bunch of them from Japan. Now, I didn't recognize a lot of these guys. I did recognize a few of them because some of them had gone on to WWF or were actually in WCW at the time, which is weird that they weren't on the WCW roster. They gave them the rename thing. But, I recognized a few, but a lot of them were from Japanese wrestling federations, New Japan, stuff like that. And at the time, I didn't recognize them. I recognize a lot more today than I did back then. But it's kind of a cool thing to go back to this game and go through all these wrestlers and realize, oh, I actually know a lot of these quote-unquote no-name wrestlers. But going on to the gameplay, it doesn't have the classic N64 controls that we see for their wrestling games. Instead, it's based off of how long you hold the button in the game. So you take a risk, you hold it longer, and you perform a harder hit, but your opponent could get a quick strike in and interrupt you, or vice versa. A lot of people didn't like this control method. I actually kind of liked it. I thought it was pretty good. It's not exactly the N64 system, but I think it was pretty good. Gameplay, again, for the time, I think the game looked good. Going back now, yeah, your polygons are pretty blocky, and the crowd is a bunch of 2D sprites that don't move around. The ring's pretty basic, but gameplay's fun, in my opinion. I like the grapple system. I like whenever, you're making the pin attempt, the 1, 2, and 3 that pop up are huge. I know it's a weird thing to comment on, but I'm so used to, the Super Nintendo games where it's a small number on the screen, whereas in this one, the number is, huge and in your face. So for being my first Aki wrestling game, I loved this thing. For me, $20 at a grocery store to pick it up was an awesome value. It was incredibly fun, and it was probably the best wrestling game on the PlayStation 1 I ever got. I did end up picking a few more. I had WWF In Your House, which it's a fun arcade game, but definitely this is a much better wrestling game. I eventually got WWF Attitude. Thought I liked that game better at the time. But if you go back, this game's easily more fun to play than WWF Attitude. Attitude did have the better graphics and better presentation. But for just gameplay, WCW Vs the World's better. And I also had WCW Nitro, and the less said about that game, the better. That was an absolute car wreck of a wrestling game. I wanted to like it. Graphically, I thought it was okay. It wasn't great. I kind of prefer the graphics in WCW Vs the World, to be honest. But, oh boy, gameplay-wise, this game stomped Nitro. They definitely took a big ol' step back with that one. So yeah, that's pretty well my childhood memories of this game and how it compared to the other wrestling games I had as a kid. Definitely one that I would keep going back to. Didn't exactly know why, because I had these newer wrestling games, but I kept going back to this one. And the other ones, may look prettier, but this game easily had better gameplay. So thank you for taking the time to listen to my memories of WCW Vs the World. Kind of funny to think about how, WCW, they may have lost that wrestling war, but man, their games at the time, they kind of blew away the WWF games. It's kind of funny to think about in a way. But we're going to close this out with some more music from the game before I go through the episode outro. Thank you again for taking time out of your day to listen to more Big Meaty Men Slappin' Meetin' March for these special March episodes of Afterglow. So there is a Discord. We're slowly kind of getting more people in there. Not very many. I would like to get more people in there just to talk and shoot about these old games with me. You can find that link in the notes section of the episode. Along with that, there's a link down there for a Patreon. If you would like to pay $1 a month and get a shout out at the end of every episode, you certainly can. We do have a few friends of the show, like Retro Gaming Roundup, a very long-running podcast. They release monthly, cover all kinds of stuff in each episode. Episodes can be anywhere from like 5 to 8 hours, roughly. Great podcast to listen to. There is also the Secret Levels podcast. Secret Levels covers one game per episode. They usually release sometimes weekly, sometimes bi-weekly, usually about an hour to 2 hours long. Always an entertaining listen. There is also the Lost and Gone podcast. They cover lost and forgotten media. They've got an interesting episode that Grim, the guy that does the podcast, is working on. I know I'm guessing on it in some way. I'm not sure what's happening, though. I know the basic theming that he did for our discussion, so once that episode comes out, go check it out for sure. It'll be an interesting listen. The show logo and artwork for Afterglow is done by Mr. TobyVonDoom from Secret Levels. And our usual intro and our outro music is done by Grim from the Lost and Gone podcast. Thank you once again for listening. There will be 1 or 2 more episodes of Big Meaty Men Slappin' Meat in March before we finally go back to our regular episodes. I've got a few games I've got picked out to give us kind of like a head start for the normal episodes. Of course, before that, there's still 1 or 2 more wrestling games to cover. So I hope you enjoy all those, and I will see you on the next episode of Afterglow.